Welcome to my channel. Let's make a paper mache bowl today. For that you're going to need a bowl that you can use as a mold, and I like to work on the outside of the bowl. It's just a bit easier. I've covered that with cling wrap so that will actually act as a barrier between the glue from the paper mache and prevent all the paper sticking to the bowl. And in my tray here I have some wallpaper paste. That's the orange that you see. I was using that for another project, but it's still glue, so I can still use it. And then the white that you see in there is some wood glue or craft glue or PVA glue, any of those, and you can mix it in. Normally about 2/3 of wallpaper paste to 1/3 of the PVA glue. Wallpaper paste takes a long time to dry on its own, so your project will seem to take forever to dry if you only use that. The wood glue on its own or the craft glue dries very quickly, so you get sticky in no time at all. But I find by mixing the two together, you get this really lovely combination, which is easy to work with. The next thing you're going to need is just some newspaper. And if you're not aware of it, newspaper has a grain. So if I turn it to one angle and I start tearing, I start getting these nice sort of straight strips. But if I take the same piece of paper and I turn it at 45 degrees and I start tearing, I get these smaller strips. And that is actually really useful when you're doing paper mache, because sometimes you need to count the layers that you're working with. And so you could do then one layer of the strips and then one layer with the smaller little pieces. So you can alternate and see whether you've covered everything. Otherwise you can find that you get in a muddle in no time at all. So the first thing that I'm going to need to do is just to get some of my glue mixture onto my paper strip, and I'm going to just work around the outside edge of my bowl to begin with. Now just remember that your paper is going to want to curve slightly towards the edges, so if necessary what you can do is just tear it off and then link it up a little bit later. And it's a good idea here to actually have glue on the top surface of the newspaper as well as underneath, because you're going to be overlapping the paper and this will require that it be wet so that it can stick. So I'm taking my strips now and I'm just getting myself a nice sort of edge around the surface of this. If you don't mind your fingers getting sticky, which I don't mind with glue, but I do mind with some other things, then you can use your fingers. But if you really are finding that it's a problem, then just use a little brush. It's not the end of the world. So you will continue to layer up layer of strips and then a layer of the torn pieces like these at cross purposes or cross angles until you have about 5 or 6 layers. You'll find that you can then set this aside to dry, and it will give you a nice sort of indication of how many layers you need to put on depending on the size of the bowl that you're making with. So I'm just going to set that aside. I have already done another bowl, but it's a different shape previously, and this one you will see it's got cling wrap. In order to get it to release, like most things, you need to just get a bit of air, so I've simply taken a little metal spatula and I've wiggled around inside there so that I can now lift this off, and you'll see the inside of my bowl here is really nice and smooth. It's not a really firm bowl at this stage, but that's okay. It's firm enough for me to get an idea of how many more layers I need to put onto here. And for this one now, I think I would probably need to put on about 4 or 5 more coats and leave it to dry. So because I've now got my initial coats dry, I can simply pop this back onto my mold and carry on. Once my next lot of layers have dried, I can take a pair of scissors and just trim the edge, and if need be, take a few little strips of paper just to neaten up the edge by wrapping them over like so, and then I'm ready to paint. So how easy is that for you to do a really nice project and make a paper mache bowl? Watch out for the next video where I'll show you how to decorate them. That will be fun. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.